Good evening and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns Hour here on YouTube. My name is Tom Luongo. It is Friday, October 25th, 2019. We're going to talk about Brexit tonight. I haven't talked about Brexit many times in the past, and we will continue to talk about Brexit until Brexit is finished. We are probably going to talk about some of the other things going on in something like Syria. I do want to cover some of that later in the evening, but for the most part, I want to talk about Brexit for now because with the way things are shaping up, it just feels like this is the right thing to talk about. So, as always, you can follow me over on my blog over at tomluongo.me. Links are down below. You can support the channel over on Patreon at patreon.com/goldgoatsandguns. You can follow me on Twitter at TFL1728. And, well, you know, you can bang the like and subscribe button down below because, you know, at the end of the day, there are only a few people doing really, really good on a regular basis, hardcore political and geopolitical analysis. And dudes, I'm one of them. You guys know it. Everybody knows it. All right. Enough bust my hand, patting myself on the back. We should wait for a couple more people to get into the channel, and then we'll get started. So let's see. What else are we talking about tonight? So what's up with Brexit is we're going to talk about Emmanuel Macron. And the reason we're going to do that is because we're at that point in the negotiations, at that point in the process, where Macron, French President Emmanuel Macron, is trying to push the withdrawal agreement agreed to between the EU and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson across the finish line. All right. That's where we are. Now, why would Emmanuel Macron help out Boris Johnson? Why are they all of a sudden allies? Well, Johnson wants the UK out of the EU, but he wants them out with a deal. Right? He doesn't need a deal. Article 50 will happen on the 31st of October if Boris Johnson doesn't do anything, because that's the law of the land. He doesn't need Parliament's approval for anything to finish off the process. Now, Parliament's done its best to try and hive off and amend the Article 50 Declaration to hell and gone, none of which is constitutional, none of which is legal, but we're at that point, we're into Palpatine land here, where everything, they will just make stuff legal. Now, but going back and forth, did this on Monday night. We talked about this. And still going back and forth with Mike Shedlock about what's going to happen. Now, Mike has been following this as closely, if not even closer than I have. And again, he's been doing a lot of great work on this. And I just feel, because I know these people well enough to know that Emmanuel Macron is not going to do anything to help the British out. He's not. He's going to do what's best for what he thinks is best for the EU. And he knows full well that the EU doesn't survive in its current form politically if the Brits are allowed to leave in any way that is conducive to their long-term health. That the best way for Britain to leave the EU is to be bound to it and voiceless. Emmanuel Macron is the most committed European leader to the European Union. I would say he's even more so than Angela Merkel. I may be wrong about that. But Macron was put in place, created out of whole cloth, to stop Marine Le Pen and the rise of the Eurosceptics in France, and to lead the EU with Merkel exiting the stage, having now become politically spent in Germany. Without a doubt. France and Germany run the EU. Anybody doubts this, go look at Italy. And the balance of power shifting away from Germany towards France. But it's not shifting away from Germany because the powers that be don't trust Germany with the powers, because there's nobody behind Merkel, handpicked, to continue the process of integration. That's Emmanuel Macron's job. He's taking that job unwillingly. I do not believe that Emmanuel Macron is an independent actor. This is where Mike and I completely disagree. Macron will do as he is told. Everybody will do as they are told. There are no independent actors. Mario Draghi at the ECB has done what he is told. Christine Lagarde will do as she is told. Macron does what he's told. And in no way, manner, shape, or form is Macron going to risk a no-deal Brexit. And therefore, he is going to front like he's not willing to give an extension in order to try and help Boris Johnson blackmail British MPs into voting for this terrible withdrawal agreement that Boris has negotiated. Just 5% better than Theresa May's deal. And this, again, is where Mike and I completely disagree. Mike thinks it's a much better deal. Mike, in name only. Not with the current parliament. Not even with a parliament that Johnson would win hands down in a general election if he gets the deal through. It's a terrible deal. Barnier will have the deal itself will give the EU all the leverage in the trade negotiations going forward, and they will have annexed Northern Ireland in the process. This is worse than Theresa May's deal in some ways. It's not better materially. It is on the surface, it's better, but it's not better. So there's little doubt. And Lex is in the house tonight. Sorry, Lex, but we're going to talk about Syria later. I got to do the Brexit thing first. So without a doubt, I don't expect Macron to do anything to help the Brits not be completely enslaved, because the orders have come down from on high that Brexit is to be betrayed. You never forget this. That's not going to be given up tomorrow because, oh, well, they might crash out with a no deal by mistake. And I know I shouldn't use that phrase, but I'm talking from their perspective. That threat is not big enough in any way to stop this. Because if it looks like that's going to happen, things will happen. They won't leave on the 31st of October. They'll extend and pretend another 3 months. Macron will grit his teeth. And then he will give them whatever extension he needs. Maybe it'll only be 3 weeks until they can decide whether or not they're going to get a general election. And then all of a sudden they'll get 3 more months. And if the orders come down from on high that they need 6 months, it'll be 6 months. Don't kid yourself. Now, let's go through the ins and outs of what's the most likely scenario to happen between now and next Thursday. Nothing's going to happen this weekend. A lot of posturing, a lot of people talking. There'll be a lot of noise in the press. None of it will mean anything. All that matters is that on Monday, Parliament's going to convene. Boris Johnson is going to bring a motion for a general election, to call a general election, because he can't pass his withdrawal agreement and he can't get any legislation through the Parliament. So we should have a new election. We should have a new Parliament. And the argument is very, very clear. And listening to the Remain crowd continue to make themselves less and less and less relevant to the voters by saying, "Oh no, we can't have an election. It's a ruse. It's a farce on the behalf of this crappy and untrustworthy Tory government." Bullshit, dude. Seriously, you can't get anything passed. You've got a minority government. You should have a new government. But because you have more power with this parliament than you would have with the next parliament, you're not willing to give it to the voters. The voters aren't stupid. They know what's going on here. So what happens next? So that motion could fail again, because under the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, they need to get 2/3 majority. You could thank Tony Blair for this, or whether it was passed under Blair, whether it was passed under Cameron or Blair, I don't remember. I don't really give a shit. Tony Blair was the architect of all this crap. So if that doesn't happen, like it hasn't happened the last 2 times Johnson's asked for it, I'm surprised Burkhouse even going to allow him to do this a 3rd time, because this is the same motion that he's put forth previously, and I thought you couldn't do that again. That under the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, he's going to get 2/3 majority. And then still after that, there's 14-day window for anyone else to form a government. So now, if that motion fails, Parliament will stay convened. Johnson will probably try one last time to bring his withdrawal agreement up for a vote. They will attempt to amend it to hell and gone. He will then pull the bill again. And then where are we? Well, the point of Macron saying that he doesn't want an extension is to try and blackmail MPs for that next vote to vote down a general election and then pass the withdrawal agreement. And that gives Macron everything he wants. Brexit is done. The Brits are fucked. The EU can move on with a clean slate and a new legislative agenda that begins on November 1st, because we've got new head of the ECB coming in. We've got new European Commission being set. We got a new European president. Everybody is going to be, everything happens now. It's all new. And they've got business that they want to take care of. And the last thing they want are the pesky Brits hanging around. Boris Johnson's got to nominate somebody to the European Commission. And I'm sure that he's blackmailed Macron at a certain level and said, look, if you don't help us get out on the 31st of October, I'm sending Nigel Farage in to be our representative on the European Council, and you won't get a budget through. He'll veto everything. So this is a despicable situation, and anybody, and my problem here is, I keep going back and forth on this. I keep saying, how can anybody believe that Macron will be an independent actor on this? There's too much at stake here. So Macron's not going to do them any favors. He's going to try and help push this withdrawal agreement through as quickly as possible. And if it doesn't work, well, we'll go for a short extension and try and blackmail parliamentarians again. I got news for you. I don't think that that's going to work. I think the members of Parliament understand that they have just as much leverage here as Macron does. Macron has no leverage here. They want a deal passed now because they want certainty that when the new session of the ECB starts up, that they will have the ability to start the process of the fiscal union in order to break down, as Mike and I discussed in a great article earlier in the other day, about the fiscal disintegration of the EU. And that's playing into their desire to want to get a deal with the UK done as quickly as possible, because they need that done in order to be able to move forward and reassure investors and reassure the currency markets and everything else that they're going to be able to move forward with their plans. Mike asked a great question in the article he wrote the other day. He said, why would Mario Draghi go for more open-ended QE and more negative interest rates and all this other stuff and continue the insane internal transfers that have been going on, where have exploded target 2 balances to the tune of $1.2 trillion, over 800 billion of which is owned by Germany, or 800, yeah. Okay, how, and on what planet would he do? Would Draghi do that, knowing full well that it's not sustainable? Well, 1, he's an idiot, or 2, it's all part of the plan, which is, how do you get Germany to sign up for a fiscal compact that they're dead set against politically and in every way. And it's part of the reason why the euros are structured the way it is now. Well, if you take the last 10 years and shovel $800 billion worth of sovereign debt from the pigs onto their balance sheet and say, look, you owe us this, and then you get to blackmail with them. So if you don't want a fiscal union, fine, we're going to write it all down. Then what? The Bundesbank goes freaking broke and the whole thing blows up. So obviously that's the next phase of this. That's how they think they're going to get out of the sovereign debt crisis that they're trying to stave off desperately by holding the euro stronger than it should be and holding interest rates negative and all of this stuff as we come up against the Brexit knife edge, the Brexit cliff edge. So don't kid yourself. The EU has no leverage here. They never have. So this is all kabuki theater on the part of Emmanuel Macron. If this looks like in any way, manner, shape, or form, they can't get a general election and they can't get this thing passed, there will be an extension. That extension will probably go to January because at that point, there will have to be some kind of an election. But again, I keep saying this over and over and over again. There will not be an election in the UK, general election in the UK, until a second referendum is secured. They can't take no deal off the table. It's not possible. They talk about it, they make the rhetoric, but it's not possible. At the end of the day, Article 50 will be invoked and cannot, and that act can't be amended in such a way that there has to be a withdrawal agreement. Because if they were capable of that, they would have already written that. They would have already amended the Withdrawal Act to that effect. But they haven't. John Berkow's given them every opportunity to write that amendment, and they know they can't write that amendment. So they have to keep playing these games where no, there can't be a no deal because you have to go until 31st. All they can do is continue to put off the date of implementation for as long as possible. They can't actually say you're not allowed to leave without a deal. And so that's where we are, right? That's where this is. And where Mike and I fundamentally disagree is what role Emmanuel Macron will actually play. I say he plays no role. He's playing a game. He's playing a game of chicken with a bunch of people who are who have been ordered not to allow the United Kingdom to leave the European Union. It's all good cop, bad cop stuff. Trying to make Boris look like the victim here, so he can win the general election without Nigel Farage and the Brexit Party. But go look at the latest polls. Last week, the Brexit Party was polling around 11%. This week, latest British polling over 20%, upwards near 20, on the threat of that they were not going to be able to leave on the 31st of October. At that point, British voters are at the point now where they're like, we don't care. We don't trust Boris to get this job done. We're done. He got a deal. Okay, great. Oh, we can't get through Parliament? Fuck him. And now everything changes. The election calculus will change overnight on this stuff. Without a doubt. And the latest polling I have is that, if they were to run a second referendum of Leave versus Remain today, it'd be 55-45. So, nothing is going to change on Brexit until they have what they want, which is they have a withdrawal agreement in place that allows the EU to have all the leverage in every stage of the negotiation so that what Britain winds up with on the way out the door is worse than just staying in. So I don't see why this is really in any way, manner, shape, or form kind of controversial. Like there's any argument about how this is going to play out. It's not going to play out. And here's the light at the end of the tunnel thing. Every time this is amended and this is extended, this is one of the things that Macron is sensitive to and does understand. it's pushing the British people to a harder and harder and harder position, that they're more and more willing to do the unacceptable, which is a hard Brexit, which is trade on WTO terms, which they don't want. And so that's the thing that will possibly stay in Macron's hand, and only give them 3 weeks, because he was the guy who said, okay, you're going to have 2 weeks. And on March the 29th, they went to April 12th. That was all Macron. And then notice they got to April 12th, and immediately it was June 30th. And then it was something else. He keeps trying to play this game of placing these moments of leverage in front of Labor and the Lib Dems and the SNP. And I'm telling you, this is the case. Now, one interesting part about this, as of right now, this is where Mike and I completely agree. This little two-step that Johnson and Macron have performed, has put Jeremy Corbyn in a bad position. The Lib Dems are never going to be more popular than they are right now. Back in June, they weren't very popular. And as we got closer to a Brexit, the closer we got to Boris Johnson taking them out on a no deal, the Lib Dems rose in popularity amongst the hardcore Remainers. Notice that they've topped out at around 20%. News for you. That's about what the hardcore Remain vote is in Britain. It just happens to be, very vocal on Twitter. But again, Twitter's not reality. They're not going to get any higher than that. And so the Lib Dems this is their best opportunity to get their best representation in a general election. Same thing goes in many ways for the Scottish National Party, who wants this Brexit over and done with so they can get on with so they can have their referendum, or they can have their Brexit, which they don't like, so that they can use that to try and get a second independence referendum. They're not going to, but that's what they think is going to happen. And the Tories are already losing support. And so once this gets done, oh my God, I just completely lost my train of thought. It just literally just went. Sorry about that. So the point being is that there's never going to be a better opportunity in this cauldron right now coming up on Monday, where the possibility that Johnson gets his general election happens. But I just don't think there's enough Labour MPs who will cross the aisle to do it. Because here's the thing. Jeremy Corbyn is not a particularly strong leader. Jeremy Corbyn is also not acceptable as a potential caretaker, a leader of a caretaker government that would then basically destroy Brexit, which is what they've been trying to do they've been arguing about for weeks about let's get a vote of no confidence together, and then, we'll install Corbyn, we'll revoke Article 50 or call for a second referendum or do whatever. And they all know that that's politically beyond the pale. They're willing to do it in a crunch. We get to the 29th and there's no deal and there's no extension. It's very possible that Boris Johnson's out of a job. Is it politically expedient? Is it political suicide for everybody who votes for it? Yes. Will that matter? No. Because it's a lot easier to pay off the 325 or 350 people, or whatever it is, 321 people it'll take to shut this shit down. Soros is just Soros just take 25 or just take what? $300 million and make everybody millionaires and then send them off to the fucking Bahamas and we're done. They're out of a job, but they've got $1 million, they've got £1 million in the bank. Done. It's not hard. It's a pittance of amount of money to bribe 320 people and get it done. And really, at the end of the day, you only have to bribe about 40, because 270 will vote for that anyway. So that's the thing. You got to realize that's what we're talking about here. They're all out of a job. They're out of a job. Won't matter at that point. The withdrawal agreement will now be a treaty, an international treaty. Done. And any incoming government will be bound by it and have to deal with it. Yeah, will that government be somewhere close to will be some kind of hard Brexit alliance? Yes. Will it matter at that point? No. Will they get a little bit more leverage? Will they fight a little bit harder during the negotiations of the free trade agreement? Sure. Will it matter in the end? No. Because the transition period, as stipulated by Johnson's shitty deal, takes them right up into the next election, right around 2020, in the middle of 2022, guess, right? The next general election is, and oh, by the way, they'll make sure that everything looks terrible for the Brits at that moment in time so they can blame everything on the government. Because they'll still be bound by fiscal compact rules. They'll still be governed by, crappy fishery quotas and all this other crap that's bad about Brexit. And they'll be like, people will be like, we voted for Brexit, we got Brexit. Why is everything still suck? And why is the EU still running everything? Why can't our leaders get anything done? Because they weren't allowed to get anything done. So this is not difficult. This is why Farage is right. They need to go on a no deal, such a clean break, or whatever the hell you want to call it. But that only happens if they keep these stupid little amendments and extensions going. Because every day that happens, another Brexiteer gets his wings. Because it just gets harder, and people are like, okay, never mind. No, I don't trust you. We hear it more and more and more every day. I don't trust you guys. You're not going to get it done. Nigel, take the freaking country over. He gets called by Remainers, for fuck's sake, on his radio show. Nigel, we need you to take the freaking country over. Please. Get us away from these freaking people. So, never forget that. That's where we are. Macron will fold in a heartbeat, and I think Corbyn knows this. So all he's got to do is keep a certain number of people in line, and he's golden. I also think that Jeremy Corbyn, at the end of the day, is a leaver. And I think he looks at this deal and goes, this is a terrible deal. This is bad for Britain. And maybe he's even, in his own weird way, a patriot. It's the main reason why he was a leaver for all these years, and campaigned against getting into the EU in the first place and the rest of it. And this is what came to me this afternoon while I was writing about this. Like, at the end of the day, Corbyn still holds a lot of power here. Even if all he's doing is holding back the forces of Remain within his own party. Is he doing a good job of it? Well, good enough. Because if he forces a 3-month extension on everybody here, yeah, the Tories will be pissed off. This one will be pissed off. That one will be pissed off. I don't give a crap about that. At the end of the day, that'll expose the ERG and the rest of them as being nothing more than Tories first and Brits second. Not the really good members of the ERG, guys like Owen Patterson, who are like, fuck this deal. I'm talking about the weak ones like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's been bribed into a position of power. The ones who voted for Theresa May's deal the third time. Because they're too freaking spineless and they're such fucking spineless cucks that they can't even hold their own goddamn line. Dumb. Dumb. Never negotiate with these people. Just tell them, fuck off. You want anything from me? You know where you know where you can find me. And my offer's in the toilet. Come up with something better than that. So, part of me actually thinks at this point that Corbyn holds the key more than Macron does to actually delivering Brexit in the long run. We'll see if I'm right. But Macron's not going to stop anything. And if he does, great. I'm happy to be wrong. If Emmanuel Macron forces a no-deal Brexit on the Brits on Thursday, I'll be jumping up and down for joy. I'll come on here on Thursday afternoon and go, I was wrong. I was wrong. I'll freaking sing. I'll dance. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I won't strip. Okay? All right, I'll sing. I'll dance. I'll do a jig. Whatever. I don't give a shit. I'll recite Bogan love poetry, for fuck's sake. I don't give a shit. I'll be so freaking happy. But Brexit's important because if it gets done, it does so much damage to the world order. So much damage to the current world order. It's not funny. That's why it's not going to happen in any meaningful way. All right. That's Brexit. I'm going to scroll back through the comments a little bit and do some of that, make sure I didn't miss anything, and then we're going to talk about Syria and Erdogan and Putin and all of that. Let's see, what do we got? Anything interesting? Tim Cutler asked me, was Churchill an order giver or an order taker? God, I don't know. Probably an order taker. They're all order takers. Jim Richatelli says, I bet Tom was a player in his 20s, lying to the girls, getting mad booty around town. That's the funniest thing I've heard in quite a long time. That was absolutely not the truth. That was not the case. What do I mean by annex Northern Ireland? Northern Ireland, it will be left in the customs union and subject to EU rules. There will be an effective border on the Irish Sea, and Northern Ireland will have different customs regulations and be governed by different sets of rules in the UK. The rest of the UK, they've effectively been annexed. El Vaquero says, hey, the Brits are putting me in charge of Brexit. You get a hard no-deal Brexit, plus the added bonus of watching Guy Verhofstadt show his teeth. Dude, I would love to watch Guy Verhofstadt, just explode. Guy Verhofstadt, every time I watch him talk anymore, because he is becoming more and more Hitler-like every day, this weird amalgam, this weird Belgian version of a cross between Adolf Hitler and Gollum. And he's with the bad teeth and everything. That all I can think of is at some point that he's just going to explode on the EU Parliament floor, kind of like the one of the storm dudes from Big Trouble in Little China, you know, that guy who just starts doing the form and then he explodes. That guy. I'm just expecting Verhofstadt to just explode like Mr. Creosote. What I'm hoping for. Stoyanovich says the EU are despicable bureaucrats incapable of anything other than acquiring more and more power to have it sit idly on the sides while rooted in socialist rot. They are only capable of destruction. Can't Hungary and Orban veto the Brexit delay? They could, but they're not going to. Why? Because Hungary is a net transfer. Farage went over this on Sunday. It's like everybody keeps talking about Viktor Orban. He's a great guy, but Hungary gets money from the EU, and who do you think they get that money from? Us. Powers that be decide and don't give a damn what the people want, and Emmanuel Macron is not a power that be. Emmanuel Macron, he's middle management. NERP's sounds like something you do to nipples, says El Vaquero. It shouldn't be a monetary term. Last weekend, says El Vaquero, I drove a truck around stuck in a washout down by a border. When I described it to a CPB agent, he said it sounded like drug smugglers and a stolen vehicle. Speaking of fentanyl, oh, you guys are talking about fentanyl. Sorry about that. All right. Let's see. Anything else? I don't know. Soros is Palpatine. That's always funny. Yeah, you can't kill him. He keeps coming back in this, and he does. Yes, and absolutely, George Soros does not see his reflection in the mirror, and if he did, he'd be horrified. Has anybody seen a picture of him recently? God Almighty, he's practically impustulated. All right. Now that we're done with the Brexit portion of the evening, let's talk about Syria for a little bit. We got about 20 minutes left. I haven't talked about this much. And part of the reason I haven't talked about it much is, well, there's not a lot to say. Except, I told you so. Because I told you so. And again, sorry to be smug, but in June, it became very obvious to Donald Trump that everything he had done up to that point on foreign policy was not working. And faced with the decision of World War III and crashing markets and the guy who and being Orange Hitler, he chose wisely. And that set everybody crazy. So the situation in Syria, for those of you, now most of you in the audience have been listening, know this story and know it well enough. But let's go over some basic timeline stuff about Syria just to make sure we're all on the same page. Since the Russian intervention into Syria in October of 2015, the big story has been the conversion of Turkey from a NATO ally and from a major player in the atomization of Turkey to now one of the guarantors that Syria will be restored. So Turkey was, I think I just misspoke. Turkey was sided with the U.S., Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and everybody and others to partition up Syria. Everybody was going to get peace, right? Israel was going to get the Golan Heights. Turkey was going to get Idlib and part of the northern part. The Kurds were going to get their own country. Saudi Arabia and Qatar were going to get pipelines into Europe, bypassing and blunting Gazprom, because they had stopped South Stream in 2014. So the process of Putin's intervention militarily into Syria was to lay bare all of the falsehoods and all the false narratives surrounding Syria. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, who's a moderate rebel, who's not a moderate rebel, who's actually behind all this, and yada, yada, yada. And of course, the Israelis are in the background going, we're not a part of this at all, even though ISIS fighters are getting triage and fucking treatment in the Golan. Okay? So, from the moment that Erdogan, quote unquote, made a mistake and shot down one of Russia's planes, interestingly enough, 3 days after it came out that his son was acting as the oil broker on the behalf of ISIS, selling all that Syrian oil. As I've said before, we didn't know where the Syrian oil was going because, we can read license plates from space, but we can't see convoys of trucks trucking oil out of the Syrian desert and selling it in Turkish ports. Really? Fuck you, really. Okay? So, Putin, from the moment that event occurred, which was meant, ground up, to get Turkey and Russia embroiled in conflict so that the U.S. could step in and then implement a no-fly zone and in Syria and lock the place down and go whole hog and invade, because that was the whole point, didn't work. Putin didn't take the bait. Erdogan, at that moment in time, I doubt Erdogan actually ordered that plane shot down. I'm firmly convinced that was the U.S. trying to create a false flag. Erdogan took the blame for it because he had to. In the same way that Bibi Netanyahu took the blame for shooting down the Russian Elan plane last year when it was the French and the fucking Brits that did it. So, from the moment that happened, and as we move forward through time, and then the coup against Erdogan, which Putin apparently helped him survive, and all of the things that have happened since then, and have been a gradual shift from Turkey out of NATO's orbit and Europe's orbit and into Russia's orbit as it pertains to the region. The United States kept pushing the Turks over and over and over again on issues that were red lines for them in terms of arming the Kurds, allowing Syrian Kurds to cross the border, take control of the border the border between Turkey and Syria, invade all of the Arab land, which was a buffer zone between Turkish Kurds in Anatolia and the Syrian Kurds, which are farther to the south. And there's a whole band of them from Manbij all the way out to the Syria's northeastern border. All that land up there is settled mostly by Arabs, Assyrians, and Christians. Not a lot of Kurds up there. So Erdogan was unbelievably ticked off with the U.S. for arming the Kurds and allowing them cross-border across the border with weapons and actively destabilize his government from within Turkey. So the United States was actively arming foreigners to undermine the government of a NATO ally. And we wonder why Erdogan switched sides. So fast forward to today, or fast forward to the siege of Aleppo, and Erdogan, for the first time ever, doesn't allow Aleppo to be resupplied from the north across the Turkish border. Because once the Syrian army had isolated a pocket around Aleppo, the Al-Qaeda guys in Idlib couldn't traverse the mountains anymore because the Syrian army was between them, so they had to go around into Turkey and come back down in through Afrin. Guess what? They couldn't do it anymore. Once that happened, I'm like, oh, no, Erdogan's off the reservation. And Aleppo, and the siege of Aleppo was broken. Those guys weren't reinforced and they were wiped out. And then Raqqa fell. And then Trump gets elected and everything kind of slowly begins to change. He finally forces Mattis and Dunford to actually fight ISIS, even though they didn't want to, because Iran on Mattis's part and Dunford and because Israel on Dunford's part. So so as this plays itself out over time, and it's obvious that the Syrian army and the Russian Air Force are going to retake the entire country west of the Euphrates River, including backing the fucking Israelis off, which is why eventually Putin put S-300s and S-400s in and shored up the Syrian defense forces, air defenses, to the point where Russia has complete autonomy over Syrian airspace and can change the course of the war. I was reading the Saker's analysis of all this earlier today, and he said, why is it that everybody thinks that Israel is anything more than bark and has any bite whatsoever? Because they keep running supposedly they keep running hundreds of sorties into Syrian territory and can't seem to do any damage. But they claim damage all the time. They claim they blew up this and they blew up this ammo dump and they blew up all this stuff. And broadbeat, chest beat, but operationally nothing seems to change, and they still and their proxies keep losing. Maybe it's because they actually suck and they haven't actually bombed anything worth a damn, and they're really good at filming stuff. Maybe they're really good at just blowing up mostly empty oil tanks or gas tanks. Who the fuck knows? Okay. So, looking at, and Tim Cutler brings up a great point that Erdogan was well paid to take some punches, and he took a big one in January, and then he finally threw in the towel. That's fine. So we get to this point, right? So the big question is now what's going on? Well, the minute that Trump announced the pullout of those 50 troops in northeastern Syria, and that sparked the outrage. Oh my God, he's going to allow the Kurds to come in and ethnically cleanse, or the Turks to come in and ethnically cleanse the Kurds, and oh my God, it's all going to be horrible. Oh my God. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You think Putin is going to allow Erdogan to go on a fucking rampage and ethnically cleanse Kurds? Do you really think that that's what's going to happen? Do you think that Trump and Putin and Erdogan didn't have this thing cooked up from the beginning as to what was going to happen and what time schedule? I mean, seriously? I mean, you can be the biggest you can be the biggest political neophyte in the world and not look at the timeline of events of the last 3 months. Trump and Erdogan make a deal over creating safe zones in this part of Turkey, and Putin and Erdogan come to an agreement in Astana and Sochi about what's going to happen in Idlib, and then this and then that and all this. You can't like see the chess pieces moving around the board, so that when Trump finally says, yeah, we're going to pull those troops out, and everybody loses their mind. And at that point, the Kurds go, excuse me, wait, what? Needle scratch. What? Which at that point, now they have to make a deal with Damascus. Now, Damascus has been trying to make a deal with the SDF Kurds, with the YPG, the political arm of the Syrian Kurds, People's Protection Forces, for 2 years, saying, look, we're coming for you eventually. We're going to get you eventually. Let's make a deal now. No. They believed Netanyahu. They believed Saudi Arabia. They believed the United States that they were going to be able to hold the line and hold that territory. And eventually, they would get their independence. Wrong. They thought that Mahmoud Barzani and the Peshmerga forces in northern Iraq were going to be able to declare their independence, take over the air base at Erbil, and then use that as a staging area for Kurdish independence. Oops, that didn't work. The popular military units, the Shia militias in Iraq, wiped them out in 3 days. And everybody's talking about how these are the Peshmerga are fucking badasses. No. Like, yeah, okay, well, whatever, fine. They turn out to be, pushovers. Now, the Shiite militias, some of them Quds force, Iranian Quds forces, and the rest. Oh, absolutely. Got news for you. It doesn't matter. No matter. Some of it Hezbollah. That's like, was Hezbollah fighting in freaking Idlib and Aleppo? Oh, absolutely. And Saker brought up a really great point the other day, saying in that same article, saying, you got to go over all of this and say, who's got the better ground game? Because you can bomb people all you want. You can have control of the skies, but you don't win a war without ground forces. You don't take territory without ground forces to hold them. You can't air bomb people into submission and expect to just win with air support. It doesn't work that way. You have to pacify the people on the ground. The United States has no ground forces, effectively, that can do anything in Syria, that can stop anything. And so, the big question now is, what is Trump doing? Right? We're getting mixed signals from Trump. He pulled some people out of the Northeast. Turkey and Putin, Erdogan and Putin have a great, come to a great agreement. See it coming a mile a fucking way if you were paying attention, but they come to the great agreement that the territorial integrity of Syria will be maintained. Syrian forces are going to move into these areas. The Turks are only going to secure this safe zone in order to wipe the Kurds out of that area, so that Turkey's territorial integrity can be restored. This is a political win for Erdogan. It's a political win for Putin. It's a military win for Putin as well. It's a win for Assad. It's a win for Trump. Trump gets to come out of Syria saving face, and we beat the shit out of ISIS. And now look, there's not even going to be an ethnically cleansing of the Kurds. And at the same time, because I put the fear of God into Erdogan by saying, no, if you go too far, we'll crash your currency and we'll destroy your economy and everything else. Don, take the win. That's what everybody played their part. At the same time, Trump is also, now at the same time, we've got the Saudis and the Iranians talking peace, right? Overtures are happening. Imran Khan is acting as the mediator and the go-between between the Iranians and the Saudi Arabians. The right guy to do that, since Iran and Saudi Arabia both have huge interests in Pakistan. And Imran Khan representing the civilian government, and then there's the Pakistani military, which is as important, if not more so, than the Pakistani government. And who's got control of, who's got more sway within the Pakistani military than the Saudi Arabians and the Iranians? It's the Saudi Arabians do. And so this is important that Pakistan be the mediator here, right? And Trump. And how many times was Imran Khan in Washington the last couple months? What, twice? 3 times? Trump made a big deal about, hey, let's deal with Kashmir. I'll be happy to be involved as a mediator in Kashmir, when really what they were talking about was how are they going to get Saudi Arabia and Iran to talk to each other. Don't ever think that none of this was all just fucking misdirection. So that's going on. You got to keep Iran honest. Trump doesn't trust the Iranians. Trump doesn't like the Iranians. Trump would be happy for Iran to not be a player in the region. But he's also a realist. They are a player in the region, and he's somebody they have to deal with. And Iran won't talk to him. So he's got to go through proxies. He's got to help set conditions up to get Iran to relax a little bit and to come to an agreement with other people. So Trump is doing his part. And how do you do your part? You keep everybody honest. You still get to play the bad guy. You still play bad cop. You say you're going to put 3,000 troops in Saudi Arabia to protect the oil fields. You say you're going to put 500 troops and tanks in the oil fields in Syria. Why? He doesn't trust Assad. He doesn't trust Hezbollah. We've got not demonstrations, riots in Lebanon because they're going through a freaking dollar funding. They're going through a dollar crisis in Lebanon. Why? Because we sanctioned the shit out of Lebanon, and we've cut them out of the dollar funding system. And the Lebanese rightly are finally now angry about the corruption within their government. So this is, it's not really almost a regime change operation. What it is at this point is like, look, if you don't get rid of Hezbollah, we're gonna we're gonna try and destroy your economy. That's not what's going to work here. What's going to happen, of course, is the current government, or part of the government before, and even the structure of the government in Lebanon may have to change. But the Chinese and the Russians will step in and stabilize Lebanon financially. Book it. It will happen. But the United States is going to keep everybody honest, playing bad guy, and playing economic warfare, continue to play economic warfare in the region while it pulls out militarily. So I'm not surprised to see riots in Lebanon. Uprisings in Lebanon. I'm not surprised to see Trump put tanks in Deir ez-Zor. He's not going to be able to keep them there forever. They may be there another year, 18 months. Who the hell knows how long they'll be there? But it doesn't matter. Eventually, those oil fields in the south near Deir ez-Zor will go back to the Syrian government. I guarantee. Because there's no other strategic purpose than to keep those people there for that long. No, eventually that'll become a liability for Trump, especially if Tulsi Gabbard gets the Democratic nomination. Not that I'm banking on that, but imagine an anti-war, a more principled anti-war Democrat running against Trump, and she's sitting there going, why are you still protecting the Saudi Arabians? They're terrible people. Why are you denying Assad the territorial integrity of Syria? Why are we doing this? Why are we still in these countries? Why are we still in Afghanistan? Why are we? Trump is going to have to respond to that. It's easy grist for the political mill. If she wants to win, she's running against him. This is where he's weakest, and that's where she's strongest. So that's what she should do, right? So it is economic terrorism on the part of the United States. It's going to continue. 2 steps backward, 1 step forward. In the case of pulling out of the Middle East, it'll be 2 steps back, 1 step to the right, forward and to the right. 2 steps back, 1 step forward and to the left. And so on over the course of the next 5 years. That's what's coming. And I say 5 years because Trump's got a year left on his current term and then another 4 years on the term that's going to likely come after that. And that will keep everything going. That will be the plan. And at the same time, what is he doing? He's placating some of his domestic critics. Oh, look, I'm not abandoning the Kurds. I'm not giving Assad the butcher back his oil money. I'm not going to, we're not leaving. We're not going to allow the border crossing between Iraq and Syria and Jordan to be a hive of terrorists, coming back. We're not going to allow them to escape Syria through Jordan and go out and populate the world. We're actually protecting them in the desert out there. But the Syrian army is just like waiting like a cat ready to pounce to kill them all. Like, can we kill them all, please? Will you people get the fuck out of the way so we can kill them? No, okay, fine. So that's what's going on in Syria. That's where we are. But make no mistake, Putin and Erdogan have started the process of changing the face of the Middle East, period. And the United States is now in the process of weaning itself out of that area. Slowly but surely, weaning itself off of Middle East chaos in order to stop the emerging China, Iranian alliance, which will implement China's Belt and Road Initiative and unite 150 countries in relative economic prosperity. You can argue, and the Steve Bannons in the world will tell you, it's Chinese colonization. Oh, no, it's not. Fuck off, Bannon. You just want to run more guns. Fucker. All right. Hope that was concise. All right, let's go back over those comments, and then I'm going to end the evening. So, Franz pops in to say, hey, the Kurds were okay in his book. Well, you must love commies. Franz is a commie, so he does. And I mentioned the Saker, and I mentioned, well, by extension, I mentioned the UN's review. If you believe that the entire site over at the UN's review is not worth your time, well, then you're an idiot. Even if you disagree with people about their conclusions, you should always read the other side. Like Franz is here listening to me. The Saker, for his many faults, and he has many faults, and I don't agree all the time with the Saker at all. But his understanding of military strength and military logistics and whatnot, I'm going to put up against any random fucking commenter in my live stream. So, if you don't know how good the Saker is at explaining military capability, I don't take his word as gospel or anything. I do as far as the Russians are concerned. Pretty strong. But there you go. Otherwise, friends, go fuck yourself. I just keep wishing he would leave, but he's my pet troll, so I get to abuse him. All right. They want to destroy Rojava because it's the only successful economy in the region, and they're climate conscious too. I mean, this is like, seriously, dude. I should just pull all of your comments out and go, the face of trolldom. Rojava is not successful in any functional way. They were paid very well by the Israelis and by the Americans. Remove that support and their clown shoes, and they'll fall on each other like fucking rats. All right. Splash and Go says the Kurds are right in the way of either the new Silk Road or a new pipeline. The Kurds are going to sign up for, you watch, the Kurds are going to sign up for Belt and Road by the time this is all done and this is all over with. Syria only has 2.5 billion barrels of proven reserves. They're not a big oil player. No, they're not. It's not about the El Vaquero. It's not about that. It's about starving the Syrian government of money and of, even if they just refine it all and then use it domestically. It's oil they don't have to import. Hevestian says, hey, have you noticed how the Houthis have continuously been improving their ground forces? You can bet Hezbollah has a hand in this, because Hezbollah are the best urban fighters in the world. Tension says, are you saying that waging senseless wars for 20 years diminishes our ground capabilities? Unthinkable. Joe Elf says, airstrikes work fine when your goal is to keep the region in constant disarray. Exactly, but it's not if you want to actually, if you want to hold on to territory. Splashing goes up. Don't you love how the MSM was saying the Lebanese are rioting because they were about to tax WhatsApp? You know. No, they couldn't get access to their fucking money in the Lebanese banks because they had shut the freaking banks down. It's ridiculous what level of idiocy these people will believe. We'll try and promulgate. Hezbollah will not be driven from Lebanon. No, what I meant was to be driven from the Lebanese government, right? Because remember, Hezbollah is a player in the tribe. You know, the Lebanese government is this weird three-pronged thing where Hezbollah, the Sunnis, and one other, and the Christians. I think the Christians. I don't remember. It's a three-headed thing, and it's all on religious lines, if I remember correctly. There's three different religions are represented by three different pillars of government. So, and anybody wants to correct me on that, please do so. Tim Gutler said the Russians need to get more rubles into the EU so that oil and gas can be invoiced in rubles. Keep an eye on big ruble deals and their repo sidecars. Yeah, but right now the Russians are happy to use euros because they know they're going to fall like 30%. By the way, at the end of the day, Nord Stream 2 is going to cost 11 billion euros. Or 55, or whatever it is, 11 billion euros, but it's only going to be like $8 billion by the time it's done. It's going to be fucking amazing by the time they're done. Could Tulsi Gabbard run third party? Don't ask that question. That's the Ron Paul trap question. I'm not even discussing third party, Tulsi Gabbard, any of that stuff. It's too early in the process for that. They did the same thing with Ron Paul. From the moment Ron Paul got any kind of traction whatsoever, the first thing they did was bombard him with questions about third party run to undermine his legitimacy as a member of his own party. Stop it. It's not important. Don't play into their games. Not even interesting. Turkstream news. Moving forward. Should be operational by the end of the year. I've heard nothing new. So the first train should be ready, should be delivering gas at full throttle by the end of this year. And the second train the capacity has all been bought in moving in through Serbia and into the rest of Europe. And I think Bulgaria is looking seriously at a third and fourth train to rebuild what would have been the original South Stream pipeline. I haven't looked at it closely recently, but I do remember seeing something about it like the last month or so. All right, guys, it's an hour and 4 minutes. I've got a long day ahead of me tomorrow. I've got some stuff to work on and get caught up after having lost a couple of days this week because I was at a funeral. So I'm trying to get back. And in the last 24 hours, I've written something like 4,000 words over 3 different articles in order to get a whole bunch of shit done. Just so you know. Oh, and then on top of everything else, we got Built Bar. And Hephaestion's great. So, with the full-fledged smearing of Built Bar, that's already begun. So, all right, you guys take care. You be well. We'll talk soon. I will probably be logging in the World of Warcraft for a little bit tonight. If any of you guys who are here and do play, I'll probably log in tonight. Maybe we can get something going. If not, I have a long day ahead of me tomorrow. I may just go to bed early. So you guys take care. Be well. Donate, like, subscribe, bang the bell for notifications. All the donation stuff's down below. If you like what you heard tonight, never hurts to remind everybody to support what you love or not. It's all good. I'll be here because this is my therapy session. You guys take care. Be well. Keep your stick on the ice.